Hello,
Mm.
gorgeous soul tribe. I'm so excited today to have the gorgeous Kerryn Sedgman here, who's one of my favorite people and who was actually my college teacher when I was studying kinesiology and when I was also studying sacred sciences. So, welcome, Kerryn. I know the soul tribe has been waiting to meet you, so thank you for joining us.
Solreta, thank you. What a history we've had. It's been extraordinary. And we're not going to talk about how long, but it's been amazing. And having you in my classes, especially when you jumped ship and came into sacred sciences, was absolutely amazing. And I still have vivid memories of that particular couple of years. It was extraordinary. So, and here
Uh,
you are, and thank you so much for including me in your beautiful world. So thank you.
Well, I know people are excited to have you here, and especially today, you're going to be talking about the 700-year return of the Cathars and the Tree of Love. So there's some beautiful wisdom that you're sharing with us today, and
Mm.
you've been on some gorgeous, amazing trips and spiritual pilgrimages, and I just get the goosebumps as I start to talk about it. I just want to set the scene and just let everyone know as well how amazing you are. So Kerryn was actually studying kinesiology and brought it to Australia in the very early 80s. And when we talk about, I guess, college and college days, my kids talk about it being in the 1900s that I was studying it. So it's a very long time ago, but yeah, it was the early 2000s that you started the beautiful Sacred Sciences School. And I see that it's still going
Mm.
online as well, which is so exciting to have that go. Because I always tell everyone it was like going to Hogwarts. If anyone wants to experience what it's like, this is the Hogwarts school we're talking about. But I would love for you to give us a little bit of a rundown and background history on yourself.
Oh, yes. I guess I was on the land. I was doing the land thing. I was being self-sufficient and a good hippie by the coast. And then I discovered something called Touch for Health, which was kinesiology. And I went with a very great friend to America in 1981, and then became one of the first kinesiology Touch for Health instructors in Australia. And so we grew clinics. We did all these things. And then we set up the first kinesiology college that was accredited by the government. It turned out it was a world first. I was with a couple of colleagues at that time. And we had a 2-year diploma program, which could also hop into a degree if anybody wanted to do that. And Solreta was one of my clients, I think, for a little while, and then she enrolled in the college, and then I felt through my studies in partly theosophy, working with Patanjali Yogananda. The Western Mystery School basically is my first love, and began to start a transitional therapy course, and we did that for 2 years, and I snuck that into getting that accredited as well. And I finished teaching that probably in about 2012. And I think I'd had enough of colleges and administration and all sorts of things. So then I went rogue. And so I decided to do it by myself without all the accreditations and things. And I'm writing books. So I've got a book being published this year called Tree of Life, Soul Purpose Astrology. And then the next one's Tree of Light. And today we're going to talk about one of them, which is the Tree of Love. So work from home. I am on a beautiful 5-acre property, mud brick stone house. And it's and here we are. I mean, that's sort of a story that can go on forever. But, if you look at the link for my website, you can have a bit of a read of all the stuff I do. And here we are today. What's that?
Oh, I've just put it on the screen for people as well. So go to kerryn.com.au and you'll see
kerryn.com.au
and links. Yeah.
Yes, that's just, it's an essay. So I've been around a while. However, that website hasn't been updated since 2019, but the core of what I do is still in there, and I'm sort of more or less focusing on writing and traveling at the moment, and doing these pilgrimages. So that's a little bit where I'm at. That's partly what I do. A lot of astrology, as well. So it fits into the Tree of Life. So I've developed my own soul purpose astrology that's connected the tree of life, working with the Hebrew letters, the tarot, and your astrology. So yeah, you can have a bit of a read of that. It's wonderful. It's very good.
And it was so interesting to experience that firsthand as a student in class. And I remember you had the tree of. Do you remember we had the tree of life? You mapped it out on the floor.
Yes.
And I think it was in Nest. Oh, I can't pronounce it. You will know what it is. Nestec, maybe.
You're Netsack. You're the romantic.
Yeah,
that's because you're looking at two Leos here, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of astrology people in the chat. We've got other astrologers in here as well, so they'll be loving this.
Awesome.
And the link.
Well, I work with it. I work with the 3 decans of each sign. So there's the first, second, and third decan of each sign that fits onto the tree of life. And I'm ruled by the sun. I'm in Tifereth, and the beautiful Solreta is ruled by Venus, and she's in Netsack, and we're the sovereigns, and she's what we call the romantics, the lovers of life and beauty. So have a bit of a look, and you can also, on that website, you can find out what decan, what your birth date is, and how that connects you to the tree of life as well. However, just quickly going back to those days, that work began to emerge through, I might say Moses, I might say Melchizedek, I might say a few of those things, began to emerge when I was teaching the sacred sciences or transitional therapy. And basically, Solreta's group were part of the initial surge of that information. So you can take a lot of credit for that, because the students of those years actually pulled through so much information that I've been eternally grateful for, and everyone's written up in the acknowledgement. So it's so cool to remember that. That was so incredible. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it really was. You held us in such a magical space. It was literally like going into that, 9 3/4 platform, and then we'd emerge each night back out. That's what it felt like. It was like going into this beautiful inner sanctum, and we were just held in magic. I felt like a child, just, I pretty much was back in those days, but just like immersed in this magic. And you were actually the first person that acknowledged, I guess, my clairvoyance and my interaction with the spiritual realms, because growing up in, a house full of muggles, my parents are gorgeous, but, it wasn't something they understood. But you were the first person that's, in the classroom, you're like, tell me if you're seeing anything, because I'd see, masters appearing from head up, or like shoulders and bust up. And you were like, all right, just let me know. And you really encouraged my gift. And I think that's part of the credit of where I am today, was from you really seeing me and seeing that connection. So thank you.
That was one quick story. Was we were teaching the elementals that particular day, and you all lost your minds because the elementals came in.
I forgot about that.
They started playing havoc with the students, and I'm going, now look. And I remember you going, it was very magical, and we were the most incredible force of soul people to actually to land a lot of that work. And as I said, I'm forever grateful. And yes, it was one of the most amazing times of my life too. And also, when you were coming into your Solreta Antaria, energy was just profound to be a part of that. So yes, it was really lovely.
Yeah. Oh, and there's just so much history that we could talk about. It's so beautiful. And I can see Emma. I've just popped Emma's comment up on the screen. It says real life Hogwarts. And then we've got Golden Trinity saying, oh, so precious, with a little fairy. So
it was.
And so we'll start to talk about the prophecy and to do with the 700-year return of the Cathars. But just with you guys listening at home too, if you have questions that come up, I'll try and highlight them. We're going to try and stick to an hour, because this might end up falling into a few parts. But yeah, we'll do our best to try and cover as much as we can. So yeah, if you want to get started in talking about what you really feel guided to share.
Oh, so on as recently as 2 weeks ago, I just returned from the Languedoc area, south of France, which is the Cathar country. I've been to France before, and in 2016 with Derek, my husband, and we had some incredible experiences in 2016 where we were in Carcassonne and around that particular area. He and I have both known that we've had different lifetime in that area, and I've always been connected to Cathar, legend, mystery, always felt the Cathar energy in me. I had, like a lot of us, a fair share of persecution in different ways. And Derek is Knights Templar, and interestingly, what we discovered back in 2016, also just want to bring a little bit of that background into the story, is that I was born of Franks. So I'm through the Frankish Empire, and there's 2 lines that occurred in the Frankish Empire. I remember in school we were taught about the Goths, the Vandals, and the Goths, the Vandals, Huns, and the Franks, who invaded Gaul, and this was that way in the Wayback Machine. And then these particular kingdoms developed from that. One was Merovingian with the King Dagobert, and then the other one was the Carolingians. And the Merovingians were first, and they were kind of still connected to the Frankish stream. So, and then the Carolingians took over from the Merovingians. But there's a legend that comes through the south of France about the Merovingians, is that it has a lot to do with the Magdalene and Jesus bloodline. Now, I'm not putting myself in that by any means. However, my bloodline in real time goes back to the house of Ramaru or Ramarut, which is one of the Merovingian houses, and which was, something that came to light. It's been coming to light over the years. And my husband Derek is a Reveille, and so he also has a bloodline connection to the Reveille Knights Templar. Now, we didn't plan that, but here we are. So it's very. And look, I've said that out loud now, and I don't say that out loud, and I have to learn to be with that, to be okay with that, because when I discovered a lot of this, I wasn't sure what the heck I'd do with it. I think, well, that's all very interesting, and so what now? But things have evolved, and in 2004, I was doing the Tree of Life, and all that energies came through, which I would have called it Moses, because I felt like I had a man that looked like Moses looking after me most of my younger life, and then the Tree of Life came through that. There was a very powerful astrological event in 2004 in early June, which was when the Venus crossed the sun. And this is just after I'd completed some of the transitional therapy in the Hogwarts school, and I was having some time by myself. And that day I was in the front yard, and I thought, well, I can do all the rituals and run around and everything, but no, actually I just need to sit in the sun. And then Mary Magdalene showed up for me on that particular day. I went inside and I did some calculations on the Tree of Life, and in the middle of the Tree of Life you can actually form the letter M. So that seemed to happen, for whatever that means. And so then the Mary Magdalene energy started to fire up with me, as it did with millions, hundreds of thousands at least, women in the early 2000s. And the Divine Feminine, as I said, was slowly raising her head, and people saying to pay attention to this. And then, people were doing the France trips, and they're going to the Magdalene and learning and studying and being infused by all this beautiful energy of hers. And I was sort of keeping a little bit more quiet and percolating that over the few years. And in 2008, it happened again. That's when the completion, the 8-year cycle of Venus crossing the sun, was complete in 2008. And that's when I began to actually start to teach a lot of the Magdalene work. And I used to run a program called The Gathering of Great Women. And the only way to get into this workshop was if you're a great woman. So that was good. That was a lot of fun. And then, and that connects up with the Cathars as well, because the great women and the great men are the Cathars, which is the bonhomme and bonne femme. That was their original names, good men and good women. And so from that point of view, was writing, teaching, running these programs of gathering of great women, mostly, well, obviously for the women. It was a bit hard to attract the men's attention at that point in time. And so that took me to 2016, where I was connected to the Magdalene in the Carcassonne Church. So in Carcassonne, it's a beautiful area. You'll notice that a lot of the buildings are round, but in the middle of Carcassonne, in the middle of that particular castle, is this very pointy church. And this is where, bad guys came in, whoever they want to be, de Montfort and Cardinal Richelieu. And that's when the proclamation was going down around killing all the women in the Cathars. But sort of the Cathars more or less came first, then the women a little bit later. So within that church, we had a lot of downloads around the Magdalene and what I should be doing with that information. And so I do have something called the Order of the Blood Rose, and that's just a process that women come, we connect, we do an initiation, and then don't have a club, we don't have meetings, we just go off and do our work in the world, and we spread the energy and of a reclamation of certain spaces around the world and in our lives to reclaim those spaces back from what's happened to them from a patriarchal perspective. I'm not being, gender specific here at all. But what happened in those particular times was the decimation of the female aspect. And also from what we might call the Sophia. So Sophia, the Christos Sophia, so rather than be a Christian or whatever I might be, a theosophist, whatever, I call myself a Sophian. So Sophia is the source of all things relative to how the earth was created. So if you would like to look up Sophia, the myth of Sophia, I didn't put this link in, I forgot about it, but there's a marvelous book which put all the energies, all the information I needed into one book rather than reading a million books on the divine feminine, which I had been doing and putting all that together. It's called Not in His Image, and it's by a man called John Lamb Lash. It's a bit of a hard read, but it actually gives you a very good historical view of what happened and puts a lot of these things together, and then that connects us back to the Cathars. So the Cathars was they were originally called Bogomils, and they were in. Thank you so much. It is that book is amazing. John Lamb Lash has written some other books. He's gone a little bit spare in some ways, like we all do, but this particular book is just exquisite, powerful, and very amazing, and it connects us to the Sophia in ourselves and how she is actually the living, breathing earth. So the Cathars, cathartic, catharsis, whatever you want to call that. Originally, they were called the bonhomme, bon femme, which is the good men and good women, and they're also called the pure ones. And they came out of Bulgaria. Some say they were chased out, but they just left, and they were the ones that believed in more of an ascetic life and were not connected to any particular dogma or religion, because they felt that the kingdom of heaven was within. We could use that as a metaphor for the way that they believed in themselves in life. And they then came to south of France and set up beautiful villages and was a self-sustaining people. They were vegetarian. They didn't eat anything that had a soul. Supposedly they would eat fish at that time. They were pescatarians. And they set up all these beautiful villages, and they attracted an extraordinary amount of people to them because it was kind of in not opposition, but in a completely different parallel universe than the Roman Catholic system at the time, which, as we know, wouldn't get you to God unless you went through all their particular trials and tribulations, or their priests and all the rest of it. No offense included here, but the Cathars actually felt that energy was within them, and they knew that the God was within. And so in their way, they divested themselves of a lot of material things and lived very simply and beautifully, and attracted thousands and thousands and thousands of followers. And so it's quite possible, because Magdalene, as we know, it's a very windy story, but Magdalene and her cast, or her crew, set off and did a little bit of a journey after the death of Jesus, so-called. And it's possible that Mary, well, we do know that Mary came to the south of France and preached there and set up her own ministry. But did she? And that's also all these really interesting questions. But the Magdalene energy was to do with a lot of the, well, obviously the divine feminine and connected to the Sophia. And this is also what the Cathars were very connected to the Sophian aspect, or the Christos Sophia, in honouring the earth as God and honouring all nature as God, whereas the Catholic Church or the Christian Church, whichever ones they were, put nature next to spirit, under spirit, and they put women under men, whereas the Cathars were egalitarian. They had feminine leaders. They were a beautiful people, and they used to go around the countryside healing and teaching people how to work with their own spiritual essence. And everyone was really honoured in their own being as being a child of God and not having to subscribe to any outside, interference or any outside dogma. So they didn't have that dogma going on. Of course, this drew attention, which wasn't a good attention from the Catholic Church, because they were actually, gathering so many people. And a lot of sects were had started. They were talking about the 12th century here, about the 1100s, and which is sort of the beginning of the Knights Templar. It was a bit of a Renaissance time. The Knights Templar came in. The Cathars were there. We had, Dante. We had the beginning of the Renaissance in many ways. A lot of different beautiful communities and castles, and where people were living a sort of bit of a golden age. And I don't know about you, but I'm a bit confused about history now, since looking at the Arthurian thing, and I'm just going, really, I don't think that's going to work. I'm not sure how that works. How could they build the Arc de Triomphe in 6 years? I don't know. Anyway, and all those chisels are pretty accurate. Anyhow, that's another story, which is hilarious. So let's just imagine that the south of France, I'm making this up now, south of France is has a beautiful community. They're wealthy. This isn't made up, this part. They're wealthy. They're Renaissance. They're into the poetry, the music. And after the women were kind of taken out of Christianity back in the 800s, etc., it took, a few hundred years for that to be returned. And the women were then deified again, and they were loved and courted, and they had courts of love, and that was a beautiful, beautiful time. And that, to me, sounds like a Tartarian time in the south of France.
Yeah, it does.
But then again, you have, the parallel stuff. You've got the Roman Catholic Church looking on, going, are they having a bit too much fun without us? So we're going to have to, do something about this. So they sent in a man called Bernard Clairvaux, one of their own. He was a fairly nice man, and he went in to, find out what the Cathars were doing, and was at a problem, to the Catholic Church. And Clairvaux came out and he said, actually, no, they're quite nice people, and they're not causing any problems. They don't have any weapons. They just have a nice life, and they're working with they're also with the aristocracy in the area, which brings me to another name that I didn't find out about until I just this trip to France, and it's had a very powerful effect on me. And her name is Esclarmonde. You can find that in the links under Anne Baring, who's a wonderful writer of the Mysteries for Women. She's got 2 books. One's called The Goddess. I can't remember the name. Thank you. That's it. I can't remember the name of her latest book, but her latest book goes into a lot of the Tree of Life information and Sophia. So Esclarmonde was born aristocratic family, living in this beautiful castle with his beautiful parents, and she married a man called, I can't remember his first name, the de Foix, and she had 6 children with him. But her calling was going more towards the Cathar, or the Cathari way. Just as a name drop here, I find him a bit challenging these days, and he's still fabulous. He's Cliff Hine. He talks a lot about being a Cathari and his muse. And if you want to get that other sort of story from Cliff, he's very much into the Cathari world, which is very exciting that people are starting to come out and talk about it. So Esclamond was also a beautiful woman, and she studied hermetics and medicines, and she would teach this. But also what she was doing, because this so-called persecution was starting to ramp up against the Cathars, and so what she was doing, she was actually protecting them and taking care of them, looking after them, and studying in their world. And then she husband died, kids were off her hands, and so then she decided to become a Cathar full time and became something called a parfait, or perfect. So Cathar means pure one, and parfait means a perfect, which you go through certain initiations. Mind you, in the caves around the Pyrenees, it's quite a profound area to go and visit. If any of you there feel connected to the Cathari energy, it's well worth your time, energy, and money to go to the Languedoc area and visit. And if you haven't read Dan Brown, that's always a good start, although it's a bit hilarious, but it's still a really good start. It gives you, thank you. That was a photograph of me sort of disappearing in that particular cave, and this beautiful woman called Alethea took that photograph of me, and I was in a profound moment of feeling the Esclamond energy around me at that particular point in time. And I've brought her home with me, and I've done a lot of research into her, and she's really quite one of the most powerful beings, I think, that I've ever connected to through my field. I guess you might call it my field. So, story.
And then I just have to say, when you sent it to me, it's almost like you're existing in multiple dimensions at one space and time, but it looks like the activation of rainbow light body starting to come through that garment of light.
It was astonishing, and I was standing there, and I was with Alethea, and I've got her link there. She's really quite the magical, amazing priestess, high priestess of all of this information that I've come across. And she said, can I take some photographs of you standing there? And I'd heard about Esclamond from her story the previous day. And so I stood there with my arms up, like it's an Esclamond kind of stance. And when I did that, just all this energy started to work all around the place. And then she took these photographs, and I look at them and I went, whoa. So it's like a moving in and out of dimension. Those caves are so full of magic and amazing energy. A lot of blue light shows up in them as well. So there's a lot of blue lights. Sorry, Dom.
Oh, sorry. Was this her?
Yes. It's Alethea. That she's wonderful. We made a great connection. We stayed at her place in Les Contes. We were there on a pilgrimage, a Mary Magdalene pilgrimage is what I've just been to, and Alethea gave us the tours of these beautiful caves. And I must say, if I would strongly recommend you follow her. I don't do Facebook in the same way. I don't keep going all the time, but her work is absolutely stunning, and who she is something else. So we had a lovely connection, and people who visit Les Contes, or people who go to Languedoc, or people who go to France in the south, in all different areas, it wasn't just in one place, but you'll feel a connection to the Cathar energy there. So all of this was going on, and then finally Esclamond, she became a parfait, and then she took up Montsegur. So Montsegur is in the Languedoc region. You've heard of that story of Montsegur. It was the last stand for the Cathars, and this is the story that how Alethea was speaking about it. And we're standing at the bottom of Montsegur at this point in time, and she started to tell the story, and I'm going a bit spare, a bit strange. And another one of the women in the group, who's just a beautiful, beautiful woman, I won't say her name, but she was saying to weep. And so we both looked at each other, and I can do it now. Oh! Anyway, we just went, oh! And it was really powerful. And the women went up up the Mount of Montsegur. The story is that the soldiers and all the Catholics were down the bottom in Inquisition, and they said, come down. If you come down, we'll put you in prison for life if you recant, or we'll burn you in this fire if you don't. And so they said, that's great, fine, whatever. I'm just using modern lingo. Can you give us a month? Sure, we'll give you a month. Some say 2 weeks, some a month. Well, there's no food, there's no water up there, etc. And this was a castle that Esclamont had actually, she owned it, she built it into this beautiful fortress. It was right at the top of a hill, and she knew 20 years before that there's something bad was going to go down. So they gave them, the however long, and in that time it's believed that they had some of the Holy Grail work, and they I can't say the words, I've just gone spare. So they had a lot of the Holy Grail relics with them from the time of the Magdalene and from the time of the Temple of Solomon and all the rest of it that were hidden. And so the idea is that they zoomed down the back of some of them zoomed down the back of the Montsegur, and they secreted these things away. This is Alethea's story. Instead of taking off, they all came back again, so to, face the music. So they all came down, and here's the guys down the bottom. I'm just paraphrasing here again, a lot of Alethea's story, but also a lot of what I've read. And Esclamont, they're waiting for her to come down, we're going to get you, she's the high priestess, we've got to, no, cut her head off, burn her, whatever they wanted to do. But they were also told that they were so frightened of the Cathars, and by this time there's been a million of them had been murdered all around France in different strongholds. Incredible stories. One particular bad one was in the town of Béziers, where there was 20,000 people, about 200 Cathar. And I think it was a Benedictine warrior monk who was in charge of that particular, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I've written it down somewhere, but I don't have my glasses on. And he just said, look, you know what? Kill them all, and God will know his own. And so they just slaughtered everybody because they couldn't tell the difference between Cathars and people who were non-Cathars. So, this is how it went down. They were so frightened of these people because they didn't need anyone. They only needed to be themselves because they're the God children. They're the God humans. And they knew how to contact that God humanness within themselves, which is what Jesus said, kingdom of heaven is within. And people just forget that. And they go, and I think he said something about don't build churches. Churches went through people around a rock. Suits me. That's great. Just do that. I think we'll build churches. So everything he did was kind of inverted. And so we ended up with this thing that he wasn't particularly, a fan of in the early days. So, and this is what had happened. The church got corrupt, too powerful, like most things. We're experiencing a lot of that now in government, etc., and church, whatever. So so that was what happened. And I'll just stick to the story, the first one, sorry. So there they all are. They're coming down from the Montsegur to meet their fate, and they had done process for themselves within because they were ready to go to God. And the story is they walk down singing into the fire. It's a very common story. You can find it anywhere. That they all sang into the fire. But as part of what Alethea was saying, some of them came down. There was a 6-year-old child was within that fortress. I don't remember her saying if the child came down or didn't come down. I don't remember that part. But there's also another story about Esclamont. They were waiting for her to come down, and she didn't show up. And so one story says she taunted them, and she held up the Grail cup up the top of the Montsegur, and it's kind of like, just come and get it, kind of thing she's going. You're not getting this. You're not getting this. But that's maybe not the same story as when it went down the hill. There's a lot of stories. Anyway, so she's up the top there waiting for her. And then someone said that there's this magnificent, this is a beautiful story that just touches everyone, that Esclamont turned into a dove and flew from the battlement of Montsegur. And she was never seen again. And some people say she died before Montsegur, some people say she died after, some people said she was a dove and she just flew. as a transfiguration, which is something that I quite connect to.
Yeah,
and there is a picture in somewhere that of the side of a rock that I've given you. It's got a kind of a doorway on it, and that's the little church where Mary Magdalene and Jesus hung out. That's the Cathar cave, and keep going, and that's it just there. That's it there. So that particular piece of rock of the Pyrenees is exactly opposite something called the Consolamentum cave, which is a cave I didn't go to that particular day. I went to a couple of the other ones, but I didn't go to the Consolamentum cave. And you can look out from the Consolamentum cave, which is where the Parfaits get their transmissions and work with their transmissions to become a Parfait or a perfect in the Cathar doctrine. And that cave is all the doorway, and I imagine, and I felt it, that above that doorway is a dove. If you can go back to that again, Solreta, and just, can you see above the doorway, there's a huge bird on the right, and that's the dove. That's the doorway, and for me, that's where she went from, and she left her mark on that door. And I was looking at that again yesterday, and it's a hard one to notice, but there's kind of like underneath that bird, underneath that doorway, is kind of like a face, sort of facing away in this way. And it kind of looks like her seeing herself as the dove in front of that cave. And it was just magnificent. And my connection to that is that the dove has been my symbol in my work for a very long time, as it's been for a lot of people. So that's that Cathari aspect of me that really felt very present in that whole story. However, I couldn't go up the mountain. I was going to go up the mountain with everybody else, and I'm not unfit, and I felt like I was wearing concrete boots, and I couldn't get up there. And so I had my trusty pendulum, and I was, don't go up there. So I came down, and I sat on this rock. This is a story, but it's a fun story. I sat on this very big rock, like a hewn bench rock. And the rock and I sat there together, and I said to the rock, you know what? I bet you were here when the shit went down, because when you look around, there's all the new forest. There's not a very old forest in the area. And I'm sitting on this rock going, I'm pretty sure you were here when all this happened. So let's just hang out together and see how we feel about each other. And two women were coming up the path towards me, and I'm sitting there with, I don't know, dress on and, my straw hat, and sitting there minding my own business, communing with the rock. And these two women come up and they say, oh, the mystic woman. And I went, okay, yes, I'm the mystic woman. So,
I love that.
Cathar. I went, oh, yes, Cathar. Oh, we Cathar, you Cathar. I said, yes, we. So we had this conversation in Spanish/English. I can understand nouns. That's about it, not tenses or, So we managed to have a conversation that they saw me as the mystic woman of Montsegur, and that we were all Cathars, and that then I said Lemuria, and they talked about, I said, do you know Lemuria? Oh, Lemuria. Yes, Lemuria. I said, Cathar. They said, yes, because the Cathars, in my sense, are strongly Lemurian people, because they live in the land amongst the rocks, and just everything's alive. I was in Lemuria. And so then one looked at me and she says, Lyra. And I went, Lyra? She said, yes, Lyra, me, Lyra. And I went, oh. I said, I'm from Lyra too. And the other one goes, oh, me, Spirios. It's just, and we just sat there and we held hands. And then we did a triangular prayer. And then they showed me pictures of the little monument just at the base of Montsegur, which was covered in elementals. And she had an elemental in her picture that's about this big. And it was a bright aqua color. And there were massive blue line running through it, and all these beings at the base of that monument. And of course, my girlfriends and I, Patty and Anne Marie, who were on the tour, we're both all Australian. And we were having a cosmic photo competition, like who could take the most cosmic photos, because if you take a picture of the sun and do all sorts, the veils are just almost disappearing now. So I thought, I wonder if I can get some of those. I went down, and sure enough, I got these beautiful energies. And I don't know if I put one of the picture of the monument in there. Oh, that is the sun at 3:30 p.m. on the Monsegur day, and in that is a drop. There is a teardrop sitting on top of the sun. I've seen a lot of little, orbs around, but I've never seen one in the shape of a teardrop, and that was kind of crazy.
Oh, was this the other one?
Yes, that's the other one. So then the sun was coming through, and I'm not sure if you can see there's a little pink line running across the bottom, but there's a blue line right at the bottom. There's a blue line, and then the sun refracted right on the top of that monument, just as at that moment, and there's a blue line running through the base of that monument. And the around that area, like, you can just point anywhere, and you will find some sort of elemental or a extraordinary orb. Sorry, there's a lot of Arcturian energy around, and Arcturian energy, I can't remember the connection now, but there's a particular word that's a code for the Arcturians. That's right. There's another, the Cathar Shepherd's chant. You can look that up too, the Cathar Shepherd's chant, and he's the shepherd who comes home to find his wife dying, and it's very haunting music. But the shepherd is also a code for Arcturus. I read that somewhere. I'm not sure. I mean, you read all these things and it all sort of comes in together. So that was the story of what went on in the south of France. And then they decimated that area, which was called Tartarian castles. And Esclamond escaped, and her body was never found. And supposedly she was in her 80s at that particular time. And there was the last parfait. Let me see if I can find his name. This is how we've come to the 700-year thing. It's taken a while. But anyway, there's the last parfait before he was put on the fire. And these fires were set up so that they would burn people's bones to ashes, because they didn't want any remnant of their Cathars left. They all had to go. And they didn't want any relics, nothing left for any deification. And supposedly to this day, you can't, well, I think the French are a bit strange on religious things anyway these days. I don't think they like wearing much religious stuff around your neck and whatever. Not sure, but something's happened there. And there's not a lot of priests left in France either, looking after the different churches. But the last parfait was called Guillaume Bellebaste on the 21st of August at 8 a.m. in 1321. He was supposedly the last parfait to walk into the fire. And then he said, in 700 years, when the laurel... Oh, going off again.
Oh,
hold on. I do this all the time, I get myself, as we say.
You'll have to rewatch the show after, because there's some beautiful comments. People are just loving hearing just the way that you story tell, and the elementals are loving. And so thank you for taking the time to show us because you just see it the way you're describing it. You can see it.
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary pageantry.
You're transforming us or teleporting us there. So thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you so much. It's very easy to feel it's easy to feel who you're with, and the people who are there at the moment feel beautiful, and I'm very comfortable, and I want to say thank you so much, because your energy feels really holding me. It's lovely. So on the 21st of August at 8 a.m. in 1321, he said, "We shall return when the laurel turns green." And the laurel is the Cathars are everywhere. I see that someone said they're in Italy too. There's a remembrance of all of who we were, and they were all over Europe, but their main enclave was down there, and that was the last stand for them as well, supposedly. supposedly. So 700 years happened on the 21st of August 2021, and so Alethea and a group of people who are connected to the Cathari, because it's living in people's energy fields, they just know it. And so they all went and stood at Montsegur and said, "We are returned." Isn't that lovely? Oh my God.
Yes, I've just got full body truth bumps all over, and I can feel it.
It's really hard.
The people watching too that are really connected with the Cathars. Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about the Mary Magdalene, and you know, people can say they're reincarnated at all sorts of different people, and I have a different view about that, but it's the legacy of the Cathars who did a lot of the Mary Magdalene teachings, and they kept bringing that through, and they kept bringing through the Sophia, and they reignited the sacred feminine in all their work. And because the Sophia, the Christos Sophia was she was trashed as well. They got her out of the system, and then you know the Father, Son, Holy Spirit took over. However, when you look at that triangle, so if you think of a triangle coming down from heaven like this, right? The Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then you see another triangle coming up from the earth, which is Mother, Daughter, Holy Soul. You put them together and you get the six-pointed star, which is a divine reunion. And this is something else that people are unaware of, that's a symbol for the divine reunion. And in the Tree of Life, there's a sacred geometry that we can find that geometry in the Tree of Life. And that's a lot to do with the work on what I call the Tree of Love. But that's beautiful. So this is what the Tree of Life looks like transposed onto a body. This is a beautiful painting. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's in my book. And there's the star of the Sophia at the top. And then the Tree of Life actually can be overlaid onto the body. And in my work, I have actually drawn in all the connections on the Tree of Life and have discovered a new acupoint or acupuncture system that's connected to the sacred geometries that lie in the body themselves. So we have a geometry that sits within our system. Putting the Tree of Life on the body isn't new. It's a very old way of looking at it. It's in the ancient wisdoms. And so then that information sort of traveled with me, I think, through Moses and through Mary Magdalene, and then through working as a Cathar or being a Cathar in that time. It was keeping the teachings of the sacred feminine alive, the divine feminine, the divine masculine. And what's happened is that it's more than important that the divine masculine come back with the divine feminine. We've had our 30, 40 years of whatever it is, finding ourselves and everything. And then, we've had a hard time, surely, as women in history. And, men didn't have a great time either. They were sent out to kill everybody and they got killed themselves. So there's been a lot of stuff, puppeteering going on for both. And we're under a lot of pressure at the moment around the sacred feminine, sacred masculine. And, we don't want to go there. But thinking about the importance of what the Tree of Love can mean. And so that comes from, say, looking at, there was a beautiful book written called The Book of Love, which is supposedly based on a legend that was the Book of Love was written by Mary Magdalene. But in, the regular channels of information, it was written by another woman who incorporated Mary Magdalene's life into this book. It's a fiction, supposedly, but it's called The Book of Love. And it relates back to the courts of love, the Magdalene, what love means. And this 700-year return of the Cathars is about a return to love, not a return to, aren't I marvelous, I'm a Cathar? No, I've had all these past lives. That's really interesting. However, how can we do something with that now instead of, sitting in our silos, past lives and going, well, I've done this and I've done that and, whatever. And I have another way of feeling about this, which has came to me when I was in France, because the Eskimo energy was very powerful and very distracting and worrisome in many ways. Because if that was a part of my pattern, I don't want to be that now, because I'm not that now. But I have a feeling, a sense in my field, like probably hundreds of women have a feeling if they know about Escalmond, or they know about Mary Magdalene, or they know about all these beautiful people in history. And so what if we keep thinking about our past lives as past? Well, hang on, they're past for a start. What realm are they in? What dimension are they in? Can't see myself there. Glare. What if in that time, let's just use the Cathars as an example, they were perfecting their future lives? And couldn't that be us now?
I just got the biggest chills again. Yeah.
That's if we stop looking at things in an inverted way and we shift it around. And I used to say, because I was a therapist for a long time in the New Age, and a lot of people very entranced by their past lives and kept suffering because of them. And I'm like, well, no, that's good to suffer, good to understand that, to take that lesson forward. But I used to make a terrible joke. It's a terrible joke. I said,
we love terrible jokes here.
It's a mum joke, probably. Like the Catholic Church just wants to control one life of yours, but really we're trying to control all the other ones that we don't even know happened yet, So we're feeling guilty. They just want us to feel guilty for one life, and then in the New Age we're making ourselves feel guilty for a whole bunch of lives,
Yeah.
And it's just a funny thing. It's a bit of an astral kind of trap in a way, I think. However, if we have the Cathar frequency, which people watching this obviously feel, and we're back together again, what are we going to do about it? We're going to just talk about it, or we're going to get back together, we're going to get the band. What are we going to do? So if that was then and this is now, and so then if the Cathari could project forward and go, what are our future lives going to be as they wandered into the fire? We're going to send out the light to land in the universal field for certain frequencies of people to remember us. And then what are they going to do? They're going to be the legacy, will be the remembrance. Their legacy will be our remembrance. And then we do something with that. And what we're going through right now on this realm, I don't know if it's round, square, flat. I haven't made up my mind.
I think realm is a perfect word.
It's what I'm safe to say, it's a realm. So within this realm, we talk about our timelines. Well, aren't we trying to perfect our future lives? So people talk about the lives of our children and our grandchildren, etc., etc., etc. True, that's in a lineage perspective. In a spiritual line, wouldn't it be interesting to now begin to perfect our future lives from the present, bringing through that Cathari line? So, and it doesn't mean going back to the land and not going shopping and all the rest of it. If I was a Cathari, I'd be fascinated to live the life I'm living now, because it's so different to what they did. So imagine them going, well, it'd be really interesting to hang out in the material realm and really see what they do there, and then we can divest ourselves of that, or we can do whatever we want with that, or we can master the material realm, which is supposedly something that is meant to happen. I don't know, or we're working with nature. Nature is God represented, so a lot of us feel very strongly about that. So with the teaching, the 700-year return, what's the point of it unless we do something with it? You know what I'm saying? So it can be all very academic or astral or spiritual, whatever you want to call that. But if there is a group of you out there that feel really connected to this Cathari energy, what are you going to do with that, and how are we going to move forward? And also, have we had enough persecution? Has everyone had enough persecution? Have I learned enough from being persecuted yet? Maybe, especially in the last few years, and we're still struggling with all this all this what I call falafel of the movie. And I'm a very political person too. I run for parliament twice because I wanted to find out what politics was all about. And at the end of the day, I'm never voting again, but that's fine. That's how I found out, So I'm still very interested in the mechanics of what's happening on the planet at the moment. But from another perspective, it's not to disengage from all of that, but it's to find where you're best. You can best be used or use yourself in this. So from the Cathari perspective, how do we want to do that? So that's just something I'm curious about. And so just making a segue, that's enough Cathari story, and then making a segue into the Tree of Love. It's the Tree of Love for me. If anyone knows about the Tree of Life, I can't teach you all here this now, but you're probably familiar with all of that and the geometry on it. Fits on the body beautifully. And also when you overlay that geometry on the body, you can actually, this is crazy, in 2020, in November, early November, I went out to the cabin out the back because all the elections were going on. I was too consumed by all the stuff that was happening. So I went out there, and I got told that I can actually draw constellations on the body through the Tree of Life map of the acupoints. And I'm going, I don't think so. That's impossible. Anyway, 12, 13 constellations later, I discovered there's a constellation of pattern that you can find in the body as well through the geometry on the Tree of Life, which is amazing. So again, that was another interesting thing that's sort of a little bit connected to what you might call ascension. But if we look at the Tree of Love, and it's just something I'll have to talk about this another time because I need to show it to you how that works. And
there's already people asking for part 2 in the chat. So
yeah. you can set up. I can show you how to set up a Tree of Life divine reunion on the Tree of Love, sacred geometry that you can do at home because you don't need workshops anymore. You just need to be able to do stuff yourself. So that's sort of where I'm up to in life after teaching workshops for 40 years and bums on seats, etc., etc. But there is a way now that we're in the Aquarian age that you don't need the teacher in front of you anymore. That's a Piscean thing. It's more about, finding through information your own insights. And so walking the sacred geometries on the Tree of Life, or the divine reunion, I call it, there's a sacred masculine geometry and a sacred feminine geometry on the Tree of Life. And as we walk those paths with men and women, then we are bringing together that reunion of the divine feminine and masculine. And I didn't know this, but in the Consolamentum cave is a 5-pointed star that people can actually put themselves in. So by coincidence, on the Tree of Life, there's a downward-facing 5-pointed star. It's not Baal and Baphomet, none of that stuff. It's none of that. It's just an upside-down 5-pointed star, right? That's the woman's aspect, as she's birthing the earth. And then on as above, so below. So the 5-pointed stars on the bottom, the woman, that's the woman's, and so the inner planets are the sacred feminine ones, and the outer planets are the sacred masculine. And that's a 5-pointed star that they walk. And if you think about as above, so below, as the woman in the cave, in the house, or wherever she might be, is birthing, she has the sacred masculine holding the space so that she is safe enough to birth the God human. So the men hold the space for the woman to be safe to do what she needs to do in her most vulnerable moment, which is birthing another God human. And so when we think of it in those terms about the role of the masculine and the role of the feminine, there is no competition. We're completely different and we have different roles that we work with, but we're still equal within the God-human aspect of ourselves. And we have different ways of getting to the same place, like, we all do. So this is something that became very apparent to all of us, the 12 women in Les Contes, where we were doing, and just behind me, there's a little Can you see that? That's my Mary Magdalene icon.
A little bit bigger. There we go.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
there we are.
Yeah.
That's good. So there's Mary Magdalene. This is the icon that we painted in LeConte. We probably put about 40 hours into that. But can you imagine 12 women painting stuff? We're all doing the same thing. We're all painting because it was all set up for us by the beautiful Irene, who's a Orthodox Christian who came on this journey and was just so spectacular in dealing with a bunch of women going, well, where I go, well, I don't know what I've done wrong, you know, and lined up, you know, the teacher, she's helping us. Or anyway, poor thing, she did a great job. But this is the icon. So we had a very strong, intimate relationship with Mary Magdalene in that. And in the environment, we became aware, and also in that area around Languedoc is there's a lot of beautiful men that are sort of wandering the desert in a way, because they've been disenfranchised in many ways over this, political, whatever, social engineering that's been going on. Anyway, we've all had to go through that. Women went through it, men went through it. It's enough now already, and it's about bringing that back together again. And so this is what the divine reunion on the Tree of Love is all about. So that's a beautiful process to walk the ground. And when you walk the ground, walking a labyrinth, you don't have to walk a labyrinth, but you can hold that sacred energy within yourself. In bare feet, you can lay as you walk on the ground, you leave a sacred path. So that's what's very powerful about the earth, because Sophia, will always resonate with you when you're ready to hear what she has to say. And in my growing up, my mother left the Catholic Church when she was 15, and she said a couple of rude words on the way out the door. And so I grew up in that house, and my father, they weren't agnostic, but they just were nature lovers. My parents, I suppose you might call them bohemian. They hippies before they were even known about. Anyway, so I had a good background in that way. And I asked my mother, what's Mum? What's God? She says, darling, God is nature. And I went, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to me, because nature is God represented. And that was just beautiful. And so that was kind of like a sentence that sort of really set my path in my life around working with nature. And I call myself an eco-spiritual enviromantic. So
that's cute.
Eco-spiritual enviromantic. So with, again, the English language really dumbs down nature, because we call it ecological, like eco, logical, environmental. So it takes the magic out. So you can say ecological, but you can change 2 letters and you get eco-magical. You've got enviromantic. So it's fun.
So cute.
playing with that. So I don't know where we're up to, but that's a lot, which is how I do it.
Yeah, we've just come to the top of the hour, and it's just been enchanting just hearing the connections of everything. And I'm so excited to hear more about the acupuncture that was part of our Soul Tribe did an activation together, where we all got together on Zoom. And it was all about activating the chakras, the nadis, the light body. And we had some really profound, amazing DMT activations that happened for some of the people that were part of it. So I think we're going back to the remembering of this light body, this garment.
Remembering, getting the band back together. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly. And that's when you go back and watch this, you'll see in the chat, I've popped up a lot of people really resonating with remembering or remembering life as a Cathar. And it's just such a gorgeous chat that we've got here. So thank you everyone so much for coming along and spending time with us. And there's so many cute little Pina said your hippie parents, Kerryn, now would have been burnt alive 700 years ago. So and we're just we've got some beautiful comments.
Interesting. You look at your families. You look at your families. So have a look at your families, and usually the black sheep are the Cathars. The black sheep are the ones that did the different stuff.
You like this one? This one is Giselle is saying, I'm so ready to get the band back together.
Well,
So
there's
beautiful.
it's wonderful, and so being giving the Cathars the honor of living with us in this life, and what will we do with that, and how can we actually, go back to love. It's the return to love. And I just watched Pam Gregory speaking to David Clements, who's quite an unusual character, and he was saying the same thing. And it also about whatever the atlas is it 3i or 3-1 or something? 3i atlas is. That's also zooming in as if to say, hello, I'm out here. We're out here. We're intelligent, and we're about love. And that's the transmutation that we're experiencing, whether we like it or not. So might as well get in early.
Yeah, there's definitely a shift happening. And I just want to remind people that we popped up, let me just put the address up again. So if you guys head on over to kerryn.com.au, and you'll find a huge amount of information over here. So much to explore. Let me just go back up to the top. So you've got about the services. So if you guys want to do in person as well. So Kerryn's more located out. Is it about 2 hours from Melbourne, or 2.5 hours?
It's about an hour and a half from Melbourne, in a little town called Daylesford that everybody loves and knows. So I'm in the forest there, at the back.
And you've got retreats and process as well. So definitely go and explore that. And there's the Escalmont website as well that you guys will be able to go check out. And also, if you guys can jump on over to Kerryn's channel, which she's just starting, the Art of Sacred Living, and you guys can go and be some of the first group or the first wave of subscribers. Interesting, Freudian slip survivors when we're talking about Cathars. So if you guys want to go and jump over there, I'm sure she'll have some incredible content that you won't want to miss.
And I'll put this up there as well. I haven't started
it yet. Send it to you.
But also, there's an Art of Sacred Living Facebook page, which I post a lot of the pictures and things on. So start to follow that. That would be good. Yeah. And I'll get that up and rolling again. So I'll keep current with all that. So I've just had a bit of a hermitage few years, and now I'm ready to do a bit more. So there's something about I'm doing a talk in person called the Cathar's Tale, and if anybody's interested, I might be doing a Zoom one as well, but we'll see how we go. So there's a few things I haven't shared, which is not really for digital at this point in time, but on face-to-face it'll be quite a good thing to talk about. So it's a Cathar's Tale. Yeah. See how you feel about that. So yes. Beautiful.
I just want to remind everyone too, we do have the Soul Alchemy Potions event coming up. It'll be around, this was the one from last month. So we had the solar eclipse new moon in Virgo, and I incorporate some of my kinesiology that I learned with Kerryn back in the early days, and we incorporate doing a bit of a group session, so helping to work through and shift any blockages and step into new identities, as well as manifestation and meditation. So that will be coming up. It'll be new moon in Libra around the 21st of October. So everyone gets a free invite when you jump on over and purchase a potion, and you can purchase them in packs where you receive all of them. And also for bookings, if you head on over to solreta.com, you'll see all of my bookings and appointments are available over there. And I just want to share this one coming up, which is in 2 days' time. And it will be with Jake and Corbin. And we've got my little cat, Lyra, that I've just felt to put in the poster as well. And when you were talking about Lyra before too, I'm like, okay, there's more meaning to her name, deeper and deeper. I just keep discovering it every day. So this will be the hypnosis update, where we are talking a bit more about the 3i Atlas and some of the Australian original prophecy, and talking about I guess, ancient ships that look like rocks, perhaps visiting Earth. So it's going to get into some interesting little segues. Plus, Corbin's going to give us an update with some of the astrology and maybe a bit of his take on 3i Atlas. And we'll look into the tarot, and Jake will expand on his findings with some of the other hypnosis sessions as well. So I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on the show. People have just loved and adored having you on. And yeah, I think you'll really enjoy reading some of the beautiful comments that that people have put up as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
And
love to all.
I feel like I was a student back in school, just soaking it in. So thank you for that. It was a beautiful moment to get to relive that. So thank you for
My
that.
complete pleasure. Thank you for including me in your beautiful world. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm just sending you big, big hugs and kisses across the realm, and look forward to having you back on and you sharing whatever you feel guided to share with us again. So thank you. Bye,
Lovely.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay,
Thank you so much.
bye.
See you next time.